The holographic sphere spun in slow, lazy circles above the lottery platform, its translucent surface catching the light from 1,000 hovering drones. Each tiny machine cast a different hue onto the sphere, making it shimmer like a soap bubble ready to burst. Kai Nakamura shifted nervously from one foot to another, his dark eyes fixed on the swirling numbers inside the sphere. His hand clutched the lottery ticket so tightly that the edges cut into his palm. "Probability of winning, 0.87%, whispered Milo, the AI companion embedded in Kai's neural interface. "You'd have better odds of being struck by lightning while being attacked by a shark." "Thanks for the encouragement," Kai muttered, trying to ignore the pounding of his heart. At 17, he was technically too young to participate in the Galactic Union's marriage lottery, but the automated ticket kiosk hadn't checked his identification when he'd impulsively handed over his last 100 credits. The money had been earmarked for his scholarship application to the new Terra Academy of Technology. But something about the lottery's swirling advertisements had called to him in a way he couldn't explain. Maybe it was loneliness, since his parents' shuttle accident 3 years ago. Kai had been on his own, drifting between temp housing units in Terra City's tech district. He'd managed to survive through a combination of his programming skills and Milo's constant companionship, but human connection remained elusive. "And now, for our final selection of the evening," announced the holographic host, her voice amplified throughout the cavernous hall. "The lucky Earth citizen who will be joined in matrimony with royalty from the Vessan Empire." The crowd around Kai buzzed with excitement. The Vessans were notoriously private, a warrior race of humanoids with crystalline-tinted skin that reflected light in mesmerizing patterns. Their empire was one of the wealthiest in the Union, and marriage alliances with them were rare and prestigious. "Ticket scanning commencing," the host continued as the sphere began to spin faster, numbers blurring into streaks of light. "And our winner is—" The sphere suddenly froze, a single sequence of digits blazing in brilliant blue. "Earth code 7329KN458. Kai looked down at his ticket, heart stopping as he recognized the sequence. That's my code," he whispered. "Correction?" Milo said, voice uncharacteristically subdued. "That's your code." The drones surrounding the platform suddenly swarmed toward Kai, bathing him in spotlight. The crowd parted like water, leaving him exposed in a circle of light. "We have our winner," the host exclaimed. "Please step forward, lucky Earthling." Kai's legs moved of their own accord, carrying him toward the platform. As he ascended the transparent steps, the holographic display above the sphere shifted, revealing the image of his intended spouse. She was unmistakably Vessan, with skin that seemed to contain galaxies beneath its surface. Her features were sharp and regal, framed by hair that moved like liquid silver. But it was her eyes that struck Kai the most, fierce, intelligent, and utterly cold. "Citizens of the Union," the host announced, "I present Princess Tara Vess of the Crystal Throne, second heir to the Vessan Empire, and her new betrothed, Kai Nakamura of Earth." The princess's hologram stared directly at Kai, her expression unreadable. Then, to the shock of everyone present, she spoke, breaking all protocol. "I reject this pairing," she said, her voice clear and cutting. "This human child is unworthy of Vessan royalty." The hall fell silent. Even the host seemed stunned, her programmed smile frozen in place. "Well," Milo whispered into the silence, "at least you won something." Kai stood frozen, mortification washing over him in waves. He'd never felt so small, so insignificant. The cameras continued to broadcast his humiliation across the Union's networks, and all he could think was that his application to the Academy would now be tainted by this scandal. Before the host could recover, The princess's hologram flickered and vanished. The drones, sensing the shift in mood, began to dim their lights. The crowd, hungry for more drama, pressed forward. A security protocol initiated, Milo warned as Kai stumbled backward, desperate to escape. A shimmer of light surrounded him as the platform's emergency transport activated, dissolving his physical form just as the first spectators reached for him. The last thing he saw before the teleportation took him was the lottery sphere, still glowing with his winning numbers. A cruel reminder that sometimes the worst luck of all was winning. The reconstruction of Kai's molecules in his tiny housing unit was accompanied by the usual momentary nausea. He collapsed onto his narrow bed, ears still ringing with the princess's rejection. "Why did I even enter that stupid lottery?" he groaned, burying his face in his pillow. "Analysis suggests temporary insanity," Milo replied. "Or possibly a subconscious desire for connection that overrode your usual logical decision-making processes." It was rhetorical, Milo. "I know, but your vital signs indicate distress, and conversation is a proven method of—" Kai's comm unit chimed, interrupting Milo's psychological analysis. The holographic display showed an official Union seal, one Kai had never seen before. "Incoming transmission from the Galactic Union Marriage Bureau," Milo announced. "Ignore it," Kai said, rolling over to face the wall. Unable to comply. Priority override, accepting transmission. The room's lights dimmed as a hologram materialized beside Kai's bed. A stern-looking human woman in the formal robes of a union administrator. "Ikai Nakamura," she said without preamble. "I am Administrator Chen Wei of the Marriage Bureau. The incident at today's lottery has created a diplomatic situation of the highest sensitivity." Kai sat up, his embarrassment giving way to concern. "I didn't mean to cause trouble. Your intentions are irrelevant," Administrator Wei interrupted. "The fact remains that you were selected by the lottery algorithm, which the Vesson royal family agreed to honor. Princess Tara Vess's public rejection constitutes a breach of the treaty between Earth and Vesson." "Uza, what does that mean?" Kai asked, a knot forming in his stomach. "It means, Mr. Nakamura, that you will be transported to Vesson immediately to complete the betrothal rite. The princess's rejection can only be formalized through the proper ceremonial channels." "Wait, what? I have to go to Vesson?" Panic rose in Kai's chest. "But I have my academy application, and I can't possibly afford—" "All expenses will be covered by the Bureau," Administrator Wei said coolly. "As for your academic pursuits, arrangements will be made. A transport will arrive for you at 600 hours tomorrow. Pack lightly. Vesson customs require new arrivals to adopt local attire." Before Kai could protest further, the hologram flickered and vanished, leaving him staring at the empty space where Administrator Wei had stood. "Milo," he said quietly, "now what just happened?" "Based on available data, you are being sent to an alien planet to be formally rejected by a princess who already publicly humiliated you, all in the name of diplomatic protocol." Kai flopped back onto his bed. "Great, just great. On the positive side," Milo added, "this will be the first time either of us has left Earth's solar system. I have always wanted to analyze Vesson crystalline technology firsthand." Kai sighed, staring at the ceiling. "At least one of us is excited." As the night cycle of his housing unit dimmed the lights further, Kai couldn't help but think about the princess's face. That moment of cold rejection. There had been something else in her eyes, too. Something he couldn't quite place. Fear? Resignation? Whatever it was, he would find out soon enough. Whether he liked it or not, his life had just become entangled with an alien princess and the politics of worlds he'd only read about in his educational modules. The lottery sphere, with its swirling possibilities, had chosen him. Now he had to live with the consequences. The Vesson transport was nothing like the utilitarian Union vessels Kai had seen before. Its exterior resembled a massive crystalline shard, refracting the morning sunlight into prismatic beams that danced across the landing pad. There were no visible engines or propulsion systems, yet it hummed with palpable energy. "Fascinating," Milo commented as they approached. "The ship appears to be a single-grown crystal structure, possibly utilizing quantum resonance for propulsion." Kai adjusted the small bag slung over his shoulder, containing only his neural interface charger and a few personal items. He'd spent the night alternating between anxiety and frantic research about Vesson culture, but information was limited. The crystal-skinned aliens were notoriously private about their customs and technology. A section of the crystal hull suddenly became transparent, revealing a tall figure waiting inside. Not Vesson, Kai noted with surprise, but human, a man in an elaborately embroidered uniform. "Kai Nakamura?" the man called, stepping forward as Kai approached. "I am Ambassador Julian Reeves, Earth's diplomatic envoy to Vesson. I'll be accompanying you on this unusual journey." Kai nodded, suddenly tongue-tied in the presence of such an important official. Ambassador Reeves looked him over with barely concealed dismay. "They sent a teenager," he muttered, more to himself than to Kai. "The Union's idea of solving a diplomatic crisis is sending a teenager to be rejected by a princess." "I didn't ask for this," Kai finally managed, his voice smaller than he intended. The ambassador's expression softened slightly. "No, I suppose you didn't. Well, come aboard. We have a 3-day journey ahead of us, and I'll need to brief you on Vesson protocol before we arrive." The interior of the vessel was even more remarkable than its exterior. Corridors seemed to shift and reform as they walked, the crystalline walls responding to some unseen command. Their quarters were surprisingly spacious, with furniture that grew seamlessly from the floor. "The ship is partially sentient," Ambassador Reeves explained, noticing Kai's wonder. "It responds to the needs and thoughts of its passengers, though it seems to prefer Vesson minds to human ones." As if to demonstrate, a chair suddenly morphed behind Kai, catching him as his knees buckled from a wave of dizziness. "A neural interface detecting spatial temporal distortion," Milo reported. "We appear to be entering faster-than-light travel without conventional acceleration." "Vesson ships don't move through space the way ours do," the ambassador said, settling into a chair of his own. "They fold it. You'll adjust to the sensation shortly." Once the initial disorientation passed, Ambassador Reeves began Kai's crash course in Vesson etiquette. The rules seemed endless. Never look directly at a Vesson's reflective patterns without permission. Speak only when addressed during formal ceremonies. Never touch a Vesson's crystalline growths. Present gifts with the left hand, but accept them with the right. Most importantly, the ambassador emphasized, you must complete the betrothal rite exactly as instructed, even though the end result will be rejection. Any deviation could be interpreted as an insult to the entire Vesson Empire. "What exactly is this rite?" Kai asked, trying to memorize the long list of protocols. Ambassador Reeves hesitated. "It varies for each royal marriage. The specifics are determined by the Vesson party, in this case, Princess Tara Vess herself. You won't know what's expected until you arrive." "That seems unfair," Kai protested. "Diplomacy rarely concerns itself with fairness," the ambassador replied with a wry smile. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we begin language lessons." The 3 days passed in a blur of intensive training. Kai's neural interface helped him absorb basic Vesson language patterns, though the crystalline harmonics of their speech were nearly impossible for human vocal cords to reproduce accurately. Ambassador Reeves seemed impressed by Kai's quick learning, though he remained pessimistic about the mission's prospects. "The princess has already made her feelings clear," he remarked on their final evening aboard the ship. "This is merely a formality to preserve the treaty. Perform the rite, accept the rejection, and we'll have you back on Earth within a week." Kai nodded, though something about the situation still bothered him. Why me, though? The lottery was random, but why would the Vessens agree to it in the first place? Don't they usually arrange political marriages? The ambassador's expression turned guarded. The arrangement was unusual, a concession after certain trade negotiations. "I'm not privy to all the details." Before Kai could press further, a chime resonated through the ship. "We're approaching Vessen space," Ambassador Reeves announced, straightening his uniform. "Prepare yourself. First impressions matter greatly to the Vessens." The view that greeted them as they entered Vessen's atmosphere was unlike anything Kai had imagined. The planet was a swirl of violet and turquoise, with massive crystalline formations visible even from orbit. These weren't buildings but natural growths, mountains of living crystal that had evolved over millions of years. The capital city, Vessa Prime, was built into and around the largest of these formations, a colossal spire that reached so high it nearly pierced the clouds. The ship circled the spire before docking at an outcropping near its peak. "The Crystal Throne," Ambassador Reeves said, gesturing to the spire. "The seat of Vessen power for 15 generations." As they disembarked, Kai was struck by the quality of the light. Everything seemed sharper, more vivid than on Earth. The air carried a faint metallic scent, not unpleasant but distinctly alien. A delegation waited on the landing platform. Most were Vessens, tall, elegant beings whose skin refracted light in hypnotic patterns. At their center stood a figure Kai recognized immediately. Princess Taraves was even more imposing in person than in hologram. She stood a full head taller than Kai, her crystalline skin containing shifting galaxies of light. Her silver hair was now braided with what appeared to be living crystal strands, and her eyes, 3 of them. Kai now realized the central one, vertical above the other 2, regarded him with the same cold assessment he remembered from the lottery. "The human arrives," she said in perfect English, her voice carrying harmonics that made Kai's neural interface buzz. "Ambassador Reeves, you may return to your embassy. The betrothal rite requires no diplomatic observers." Ambassador Reeves stiffened. "With respect, Princess, my instructions are to accompany—" "Your instructions," she interrupted, "are irrelevant on Vessen soil. The human will be returned to you when the rite is complete." The ambassador hesitated, then bowed slightly. "As you wish, Princess." He turned to Kai, lowering his voice. "Remember what we practiced. The Union is counting on you." With that less than reassuring farewell, Ambassador Reeves retreated to the ship, leaving Kai alone with the Vessen delegation. The princess turned without a word and began walking toward an entrance in the crystal spire. The other Vessens fell into formation around Kai, making it clear he was expected to follow. "Remarkable architecture," Milo whispered through their private connection. "The entire structure appears to be a single organism, directing energy through pathways similar to a nervous system." Kai barely heard his AI companion's observations, too focused on maintaining the proper gait and posture Ambassador Reeves had drilled into him. The princess moved with liquid grace, her feet barely seeming to touch the ground. Inside the spire, the crystal walls pulsed with soft light, responding to the presence of the Vessens. Corridors branched and merged in patterns that seemed random to Kai but clearly made sense to his escorts. Finally, they entered a vast chamber near the heart of the spire. The room was a perfect dome, with crystal facets reflecting infinite variations of everyone inside. At its center stood a raised platform surrounded by what appeared to be floating shards of crystal, each emitting a different tone as it rotated slowly in the air. "The Chamber of Resonance," Princess Taraves announced, turning to face Kai, "where the betrothal rite will begin at dawn tomorrow. Until then, you will be prepared by the High Priestess," as if summoned by her words. A new figure glided into the chamber. Unlike the other Vessens, this one's crystalline features were clouded with age, though no less striking. Where the princess's skin contained galaxies, the priestesses held what looked like frozen lightning. "I am Yarila," the elderly Vessen said, her voice a complex chord rather than a single note. "You are the lottery winner, the human child." Kai bowed as he'd been taught. "High Priestess, I am honored to—" "Save your earth pleasantries," Irila interrupted. "They have no meaning here. You will come with me now." The princess watched impassively as the High Priestess led Kai away. Just before they exited the chamber, Kai glanced back. For a brief moment, he thought he saw something flicker across Taraves's expression, a crack in her regal mask. But it was gone so quickly he might have imagined it. The preparation turned out to be a series of rituals that lasted well into the night. Kai was bathed in luminescent liquid that seemed to seep into his very pores, temporarily giving his skin a faint crystalline sheen. His clothes were replaced with Vessen garments, layers of fabric that somehow felt both weightless and substantial, woven with threads that responded to his body temperature. Throughout it all, High Priestess Irila watched with thinly veiled disdain, occasionally correcting his posture or movement with a sharp word or gesture. She offered no explanation for the rituals, and Kai quickly learned that questions were met with stony silence. "The Vessen life signs are difficult to read," Milo reported after several hours. "But I detect elevated stress patterns in the High Priestess's vocal harmonics. She appears afraid." "Afraid of what?" Kai subvocalized, careful not to move his lips. "Unknown, but her fear correlates with mentions of the princess or the betrothal rite." This unexpected insight gave Kai pause. What could possibly frighten a high-ranking Vessen about a ceremony that was, by all accounts, merely a formality? He had little time to ponder this mystery. As the first light of Vessen's binary suns crept through the crystalline walls, Irila announced that the preparation was complete. "The rite begins," she said, leading him back toward the Chamber of Resonance. "Remember, human, one misstep in the ritual could be interpreted as an insult to all Vessen. The consequences would be severe." The chamber had transformed overnight. Hundreds of Vessens now filled the tiered observation rings surrounding the central platform. The floating crystal shards had multiplied, creating a complex three-dimensional maze that rotated slowly around the platform. Princess Taraves stood at the chamber's far end, her attire even more elaborate than before. A crown of living crystal adorned her head, sending prismatic patterns dancing across the walls with every slight movement. As Kai was led to the platform's edge, he noticed a new figure standing beside the princess, a male Vessen whose crystalline features were set in a permanent sneer. Unlike the others, whose skin contained light and color, his seemed to absorb it, creating an unsettling void-like effect. Lord Cycron, Milo identified through their neural link, chief advisor to the Vessen sovereign and uncle to the princess. Historical archives indicate he opposed the lottery arrangement from its inception. Cycron's presence made Kai even more uneasy. The advisor leaned close to Taraves, whispering something that made her posture stiffen further. High Priestess Irila stepped forward, raising her arms to address the gathering. "The betrothal rite commences. Let the human approach the resonance path. taking a deep breath. Kai stepped onto the platform. Immediately, the crystal shards around him began to move faster, their tones shifting to create a dissonant melody. You must navigate the path, Irila instructed. Each shard you touch must harmonize with your intent. Reach the princess with a harmonious sequence, and the betrothal will be confirmed. Fail, and rejection is formalized. Kai hesitated. Ambassador Reeves hadn't prepared him for this. How do I make them harmonize? That is for you to discover, the priestess replied coldly. Begin. Tentatively, Kai reached for the nearest crystal shard. As his fingers made contact, it emitted a harsh, grating sound that made several Vessens in the audience wince. The shard turned a dark red. A disharmony, Irila announced. First contact fails. Lord Cycron smiled thinly. As expected, the human has no understanding of Vessen resonance. Kai tried again with another shard, concentrating on projecting calm, positive thoughts as he touched it. This time, the crystal emitted a slightly less discordant tone and turned amber. Marginal improvement, Irila noted, sounding almost disappointed. But still disharmony. Frustration built in Kai's chest. How was he supposed to succeed at a test he didn't understand? This wasn't a fair ritual, it was designed for failure. As that thought crystallized, Kai suddenly understood. This was never meant to be a legitimate betrothal. The lottery, the rejection, this impossible ritual, it was all political theater, with him as the unwitting performer. He looked up, meeting Princess Tara Vess's three-eyed gaze directly. A breach of protocol. But he no longer cared. This is rigged, he said clearly, his voice echoing through the chamber. You never intended any human to pass this test. A shocked murmur ran through the Vessen audience. Lord Cycron stepped forward, outrage evident in his void-like features. The human insults the sacred rite. This is an act of diplomatic aggression. But Kai wasn't looking at Cycron. He was watching the princess, whose expression had shifted subtly at his accusation. There it was again, that crack in her perfect mask, a flash of... What? Respect? Recognition? Without warning, Kai's neural interface buzzed painfully. Translation error, Milo reported urgently. Previous Vessen speech patterns being reanalyzed. Harmonics contain secondary communication channel inaudible to human ears. What are they saying? Kai subvocalized. E-working. Partial translation. High Priestess to Lord Cycron. Earlier exchange. Altered the resonance pattern. Human cannot possibly succeed. Agreement will be honored. Kai's suspicions solidified into certainty. This wasn't just rigged, it was sabotage. And based on the princess's reaction, she might not be a willing participant in the deception. Taking a chance. Kai addressed Taraves directly. Your Highness, I believe there has been interference with the ritual. The resonance patterns have been altered. Lord Cycron moved to intervene, but Princess Taraves raised a hand, silencing him. For the first time since his arrival, she addressed Kai directly. Serious accusations require evidence. Earthchild, what proof have you of tampering? Kai hesitated. He had no actual proof, just Milo's partial translation and his own intuition. But something in the princess's tone encouraged him to continue. I propose a test, he said, thinking quickly. Let High Priestess Irila demonstrate the proper resonance sequence herself, before the assembly. A louder murmur swept through the chamber. Even Lord Cycron seemed momentarily taken aback by the suggestion. Unprecedented, the High Priestess sputtered. The human does not understand our ways. The one being tested must discover the path themselves. Is that true, Priestess? Taraves asked, her vertical third eye narrowing slightly. In my studies of our history, I recall the rite of Kellervoss, where the path was demonstrated first as a sign of good faith. Irila's crystalline features clouded. That was a different circumstance, Highness. Yet a precedent exists, the princess pressed. And as the royal participant in this betrothal, I invoke my right to request a demonstration. The tension in the chamber was palpable. Lord Sacren stepped close to the princess again, speaking in low, urgent tones that Kai couldn't hear. Taraves listened briefly, then cut him off with a sharp gesture. The human's request is granted, she announced. High Priestess Irila will demonstrate the proper resonance sequence. All eyes turned to the elderly Vesson, whose clouded features now showed visible distress. Slowly, she approached the platform, her movements lacking their usual grace. As the princess commands, she said, her harmonics discordant. Irila reached for the first crystal shard, the same one that had turned red at Kai's touch. Under her fingers, it emitted a pure, bell-like tone and glowed green. She moved to the next, producing another harmonious sound, one by one. She created a path of glowing green shards through the rotating maze. As she touched the seventh crystal, however, something unexpected happened. The shard emitted the same harsh sound it had for Kai and turned dark red. A disharmony, came the shocked whisper from the audience. Irila froze, her hand still on the offending crystal. This is not possible. The sequence was aligned. Lord Sacren stepped forward. What trickery is this? The human must have corrupted the resonance field. But Taraves was already moving, ascending the platform with fluid grace. She approached the crystal that had rejected Irila and placed her hand upon it. Under her touch, it emitted a tone so pure that Kai felt it in his bones and turned a brilliant blue. Not corruption, the princess said, her voice carrying easily through the now silent chamber. Revelation. The betrothal rite has been compromised. She turned to face the assembly, her three eyes blazing with inner light. This human, Kai Nakamura of Earth, has revealed deception within our sacred ritual. By our most ancient laws, such revelation constitutes a successful completion of the rite itself. Impossible, Lord Sacren shouted, his void-like features contorting. The human failed to complete the path. He completed a different path, Taraves countered. The path to truth. Our laws are clear on this matter, Uncle. The chamber erupted in chaos, with Vessons arguing loudly in their crystalline language. Kai stood frozen on the platform, unsure what had just happened or what it meant for him. Princess Taraves approached, standing closer to him than any Vesson had yet dared. Up close, the galaxies beneath her skin were mesmerizing, shifting and flowing like real celestial bodies. You have surprised me, Kai Nakamura of Earth, she said quietly, her voice pitched so only he could hear. Perhaps the lottery chose more wisely than I first believed. Before Kai could respond, Lord Sacren pushed his way onto the platform, followed by several Vesson guards. This farce has gone far enough, he snarled. Guards, detain the human for questioning. He has interfered with sacred Vesson protocols. To Kai's shock, the princess stepped between him and the guards. You exceed your authority, Lord Sacren. By law, the human is now under my protection as my betrothed. The word hit Kai like a physical blow. Betrothed? Hadn't the whole point of this ritual been to formalize his rejection? Your father will hear of this defiance, Sacren threatened, his voice dropping to a dangerous register that made the crystal platform beneath them vibrate. I'm counting on it, Taraves replied coolly. Then to the guards. Escort Lord Sacren from the chamber. The betrothal rite is complete. As Sacren was led away, protesting loudly, the princess turned back to Kai. Come, she said, extending a hand, another breach of Vesson protocol. We have much to discuss. My unexpected betrothed, still dazed. Kai took her offered hand. Her skin was cool to the touch, with a faint vibration that matched the rhythm of his own heartbeat. "What just happened?" he whispered as she led him from the platform. For the first time, Taraves's expression softened into something that might, on a human, have been a smile. Politics. Kai Nakamura. Politics and perhaps a touch of fate. As they exited the chamber of resonance together, leaving behind the stunned assembly, Kai couldn't help but feel that he'd somehow stumbled into a game far more complex than he'd realized. A game where he might have just unwittingly changed the rules. Taraves led Kai through a dizzying series of crystalline corridors, the walls pulsing with light that seemed to respond to the princess's agitated state. Guards fell into formation around them, their crystalline armor creating a protective cocoon. "We must reach my private chambers," she said, her voice low and urgent. "It won't take long for my uncle to rally his supporters." "I don't understand," Kai replied, struggling to keep pace with her long strides. "You rejected me publicly during the lottery. Why did you just declare me your betrothed?" "Politics is rarely straightforward, especially Vesson politics." She glanced at him, her three eyes assessing. The lottery was never meant to result in actual marriage. It was a concession to the union, a symbolic gesture of cultural exchange. Then why the elaborate ritual? Why the sabotage? They reached an intersection where 4 corridors met in a perfect cross. Taraves hesitated, then chose the rightmost path. "Lord Cycron seeks to undermine the alliance with Earth," she explained as they hurried along. "The lottery provided him with an opportunity. If a human failed the ritual under circumstances that could be interpreted as an insult to Vesson, it would justify severing diplomatic ties." "And you knew about this?" Kai asked, unable to keep the accusation from his voice. The princess's step faltered momentarily. "I suspected but had no proof. My position is precarious. As second heir, I have limited power to challenge the chief advisor directly." Before Kai could press further, they arrived at what appeared to be a dead end. Taraves placed her hand against the smooth crystal wall, which rippled like water and parted to reveal a spacious chamber beyond. Unlike the austere, formal spaces Kai had seen so far, these rooms were clearly personal. The walls were lined with what looked like books, actual physical books, a rarity even on Earth. Crystalline sculptures dotted the space, each emitting a subtle hum that combined to create a soothing ambient melody. As the wall sealed behind them, Taraves's rigid posture relaxed visibly. "We can speak freely here. My chambers are shielded from surveillance." "Why did you help me?" Kai asked, still trying to make sense of the situation. "You could have let Cycron's plan succeed." The princess moved to a raised platform that resembled a desk, touching several crystal controls that activated holographic displays. "Because Cycron's vision for Vesson is one of isolation and stagnation," she replied, studying the displays. "For generations, our people have grown increasingly xenophobic, retreating behind our crystalline technology and cultural superiority. Meanwhile, the rest of the Union evolves and adapts." She turned to face him, her expression earnest. "I believe Vesson must change, or we will eventually become irrelevant. The alliance with Earth represents a path forward." Kai processed this information, trying to reconcile it with the cold, dismissive princess from the lottery broadcast. "So your public rejection, it was expected," she finished for him. "Had I appeared eager for the match, Cycron would have been immediately suspicious. I needed to maintain the appearance of reluctance." "And now? What happens now that you've claimed me as your betrothed?" Taraves's features settled into a grimace. "Now we face the consequences of my improvisation. By invoking the ancient law of revelation, I've placed us both in a difficult position. According to tradition, we are now formally betrothed and must either proceed to marriage or—" She trailed off, turning back to the holographic displays. "Or what?" Kai prompted. "Or face the challenge of dissolution. A ritual combat where you would face a champion of Cycron's choosing." She sighed, a surprisingly human sound. "Neither option serves our immediate needs." Kai sank onto a nearby crystalline formation that obligingly reshaped itself into a chair. "So I'm trapped in an engagement to an alien princess I just met, with the only way out being a fight I'd surely lose. Great. There may be another solution," Taraves said, manipulating the holographic controls. "If we can prove Cycron's interference with the betrothal rite, the entire process would be invalidated. You could return to Earth without diplomatic incident, and I could continue my work for the Alliance from within." "How do we prove it?" "A High Priestess Eurila," the princess replied. "She was clearly involved in the sabotage. If we can convince her to testify against Cycron—" A chime interrupted her, emanating from the chamber walls. Taraves froze, her crystalline features clouding with concern. "Security breach," she said, moving swiftly to another control panel. "The palace guard is being mobilized. Cycron must have convinced my father to order your arrest." "On what grounds?" Kai asked, alarm rising. "Espionage, most likely. It's his favorite accusation against off-worlders." She worked the controls frantically. "We need to leave. Now." "Leave and go where?" Instead of answering, Taraves moved to what appeared to be a solid wall and placed both hands against it. The crystal surface liquefied beneath her touch, revealing a narrow passage beyond. "This leads to the outer terraces," she explained, gathering what looked like a cloak made of shifting metallic fabric. "From there, we can reach the lower city. I have allies who can shelter us while we gather evidence against Cycron." Kai hesitated. "You're risking a lot for this alliance. Why is it so important to you personally?" The princess paused, her three eyes regarding him with unexpected vulnerability. "Because I've seen what becomes of civilizations that turn inward. They calcify. They die. Vesson is already showing signs of cultural stagnation. Technology without innovation, tradition without growth." She extended her hand to him once more. "Will you trust me, Kai Nakamura? Neither of us chose this connection, but perhaps we can use it to change both our worlds for the better." Kai's neural interface buzzed. "Detecting approach of multiple Vesson life signs," Milo warned. "Estimate 3 minutes until they reach this location. Decision time." Kai could surrender himself, hope for the Union's diplomatic intervention, and likely end up as a pawn in Vesson internal politics. Or he could trust this alien princess who had first rejected him, then defended him, and now proposed they flee together. "Lead the way," he said, taking her offered hand. "But I want full explanations once we're safe." "You'll have them," she promised, pulling him into the passage. "And more besides." The secret passage twisted and turned through the living crystal of the spire, occasionally branching into multiple paths that would have been impossible to navigate without Taraves's guidance. As they moved further from her chambers, the princess retrieved a small device from beneath her robes and pressed it to her throat. "Vocal modulator," she explained as her appearance rippled and changed. Her royal attire transformed into simpler garments, and her distinctive three-eyed appearance shifted to the standard Vesson configuration of 2 eyes. "Temporary disguise. The effect won't fool sensors, but it should be enough for visual identification." She offered a second modulator to Kai, who applied it as instructed. The device was cool against his skin, spreading a tingling sensation across his face and body. Looking down, he saw his human features taking on a faint crystalline quality. Not a full Vessan appearance, but enough to pass as a half-breed at a distance. Half-breeds are uncommon but not unheard of in the lower city, Taraves explained. Keep your head down and follow my lead. They emerged onto a wide terrace jutting from the side of the crystal spire. From this vantage point, Kai could see the full splendor of Vesa Prime spread below them, a vast metropolis of crystal structures in varying sizes and hues, connected by bridges that seemed to be made of solid light. In the distance, a massive forest of crystal vegetation stretched to the horizon, catching the rays of the binary suns in hypnotic patterns. Beautiful, Kai murmured, momentarily forgetting their predicament. Yes, Taraves agreed, a hint of pride in her voice. Beautiful, but increasingly isolated. Come, we must reach the transportation hub before the general alarm is sounded. They hurried along the terrace to a platform where several small, crystalline vessels were docked. Personal transports. Kai realized, similar to Earth's air taxis but far more elegant in design. The princess approached one of the vessels, which responded to her presence by extending a ramp. These are keyed to royal biosignatures, she explained. One advantage of my position that Cycron cannot override. As they boarded, alarm tones began to resonate throughout the spire, a haunting crystalline wail that set Kai's teeth on edge. Too late, Taraves muttered, activating the vessel's controls. Hold on. The transport detached from the docking platform and immediately plunged downward in a stomach-lurching dive. Kai grabbed the nearest handhold, his knuckles white as the princess navigated between towering crystal structures at breakneck speed. Where exactly are we going? He managed to ask as they leveled out near the city's middle tier. The Resonance District, she replied, her attention fixed on guiding the vessel through increasingly narrow passages. Home to artists, thinkers, and those who question tradition, including some who share my concerns about Vessen's future. Your rebels, you mean? Kai said, understanding dawning. Taraves shot him a sharp look. We prefer progressive faction. But yes, essentially, the transport suddenly shuddered as a beam of intense light struck its rear section. Warning signals flashed across the control panel. Palace security, the princess growled, executing a series of evasive maneuvers that sent them spiraling between buildings. They're using resonance disruptors to destabilize our navigation. Another beam hit them, this time causing the vessel's crystalline structure to emit a discordant tone. The controls flickered beneath Taraves's hands. Systems failing, she announced grimly. We'll have to continue on foot. She guided the faltering transport toward a narrow landing platform jutting from a modest crystal formation. As they touched down, the vessel's exterior began to fracture, hairline cracks spreading across its surface. Move, Taraves ordered, pulling Kai toward the exit as the transport's disintegration accelerated. They leapt from the ramp just as the vessel collapsed into a shower of crystalline fragments that tinkled musically as they scattered across the platform. And well, that's one way to make an entrance, Kai remarked, brushing crystal dust from his clothing. Despite the situation, Taraves's lips quirked in what might have been amusement. Your species' tendency toward inappropriate humor in crisis situations is remarkably consistent. It's how we cope, Kai replied, following her toward a doorway that had appeared in the side of the building. That and running for our lives, which we seem to be doing a lot of. The door sealed behind them, plunging them into near darkness illuminated only by the faint glow of Taraves's crystalline skin. She placed her hand against a panel on the wall, which responded with a soft chime. Identity confirmed, announced a disembodied voice. Welcome, advocate. Lights activated, revealing a spacious interior filled with an eclectic mix of Vesson crystal technology and off-world artifacts. Several figures rose from workstations around the room, all Vesson, but dressed in styles that blended their native aesthetic with influences from other Union cultures. "Your Highness," one of them said, stepping forward and bowing deeply. "We received your emergency signal but did not expect you in person. Circumstances changed rapidly." "Naren," Taraves replied, deactivating her vocal modulator and returning to her true appearance. "Cycron has made his move earlier than anticipated." Naren, a younger Vesson whose crystalline features contained swirling patterns of deep blue, turned curious eyes toward Kai. "And this is—" "A Kai Nakamura of Earth," the princess said. "The lottery winner and currently my betrothed." A ripple of surprise moved through the gathered Vessons. Naren's eyes widened. The ritual succeeded, but our intelligence indicated Cycron had compromised the resonance patterns. "He did," Taraves confirmed. Kai exposed the sabotage, which by ancient law constituted successful completion of the rite. A murmur of appreciation spread through the room. One of the older Vessons stepped forward, their crystalline features clouded with age similar to High Priestess Irila's, but with a warmth the priestess lacked. "Clever," they said, studying Kai with interest. "I am Velix, cultural historian and some would say troublemaker. Any being who can turn Cycron's schemes against him is welcome here." Kai managed a smile, though exhaustion was beginning to catch up with him. The adrenaline of their escape was wearing off, leaving him lightheaded. Taraves noticed his fatigue. "Kai needs rest. Is the safe room prepared?" "Always," Naren confirmed, gesturing toward a doorway at the far end of the space. "We'll keep watch and update you on palace movements." The princess nodded gratefully, then guided Kai toward the indicated room. Inside was a simple space containing what appeared to be sleeping platforms and a small food preparation area. "It's not royal accommodations," Taraves said apologetically, "but it's secure." "Right now, secure sounds perfect," Kai replied, sinking onto one of the platforms, which adjusted to his body shape. "So these are your rebels. Sorry, your progressive faction." The princess seated herself opposite him. "Yes, scholars, artists, scientists, Vessons who believe in engagement with the wider Union. We've been working for years to counter Cycron's influence and push for more open policies. And your father, the sovereign, where does he stand?" Taraves's expression clouded. "My father is traditional, not as extreme as Cycron, but cautious to a fault. He listens to his advisors, and for too long, those advisors have been chosen by my uncle." She leaned forward, her three eyes intense. "The lottery was my initiative, a small step toward normalizing relations with Earth. I never expected it to become this complicated." "That makes two of us," Kai said with a tired laugh. 24 hours ago, my biggest worry was my academy application." "The Technology Academy," Taraves recalled. "You're a scholar." "Trying to be. I work with neural interfaces mostly, finding ways to improve human-AI integration." He tapped the discrete implant at his temple. "Milo helps me test my modifications." "Milo?" "My AI companion. He's been unusually quiet since we left the palace." "Signal interference." Milo's voice suddenly returned, slightly distorted. "The crystal structures in this district contain unique resonance patterns that affected our connection." "Fascinating, actually." Taraves looked startled. "Your AI can interface with Vesson technology?" "Not directly," Kai explained. "But he can analyze and adapt to new patterns. It's part of what I've been working on, making AI systems more responsive to non-human technologies." The princess's eyes lit with interest. That could be invaluable. One of our greatest challenges has been compatibility between Vesson Crystal Tech and Union systems. Maybe I could help with that, Kai offered, then yawned involuntarily. After some sleep, that is. Taraves smiled. A real smile this time, not the diplomatic mask she'd worn before. Rest. We'll talk more when you've recovered. As she rose to leave, Kai caught her wrist. Another breach of Vesson protocol, but those boundaries seemed less important now. Thank you, he said simply, for getting me out of there. The princess looked down at his hand on her crystalline skin, but didn't pull away. We helped each other, she replied softly. Perhaps that's a promising start. After she left, Kai stretched out on the sleeping platform, his mind racing despite his exhaustion. In less than 2 days, he'd gone from anonymous Earth orphan to politically significant betrothed of an alien princess, now hiding from palace security with a group of Vesson progressives. Milo, he whispered, do you think we're ever getting back to Earth? Insufficient data for accurate prediction, the AI replied. But based on current trajectory, our immediate future appears to be tied to Princess Taraves and her political movement. Not exactly what I signed up for with that lottery ticket. On the contrary, Milo noted, you quite literally signed up for connection with a Vesson royal. The specific nature of that connection was never specified. Kai chuckled softly. Fair point. I just didn't expect it to involve quite so much running and hiding. The princess is intriguing, Milo observed. Her neural patterns differ from other Vessons we've encountered, more adaptive, less rigid. You can read Vesson neural patterns now. Partially, their crystalline biology creates distinctive energy signatures. Taraves's signature shows unusual flexibility for her species. Kai thought about this as fatigue pulled him towards sleep. The princess was indeed different, willing to risk her position for her beliefs, to trust an alien with her plans. There was something compelling about her passion for change, her vision for a more connected future. As consciousness faded, Kai realized with some surprise that despite the danger and confusion, part of him was actually glad the lottery had selected him. Meeting Taraves, seeing this crystal world, being part of something larger than his solitary existence on Earth. It awakened something in him that had been dormant since his parents' death. A sense of purpose, a sense of possibility. With that realization warming his thoughts, he drifted into sleep, the gentle hum of Vesson crystal technology singing him a strange but not unpleasant lullaby. Kai awoke to the sound of urgent voices. Disoriented, he sat up quickly, momentarily forgetting where he was until the events of the previous day came rushing back. The sleeping platform had adjusted to his movements during rest, creating a perfect impression of his body that now reformed into its original shape. Milo? He whispered. What's happening? Multiple Vesson life signs in the main chamber. The AI reported no elevated vocal harmonics indicating agitation on Princess Taraves is among them. Kai moved to the door, which sensed his approach and became transparent, allowing him to see into the main room without opening it. Taraves stood in the center of a group of Vessons, including Naren and Velex from the night before. Her posture was tense, her 3 eyes glowing with an intensity Kai hadn't seen before. The announcement is genuine, she was saying, her crystalline voice carrying harmonics of distress. My father has officially declared me absent without leave and revoked my royal status pending investigation. He can't do that, Naren protested. The line of succession is sacred. Even the sovereign can't simply... He can with unanimous support from the Council of Elders. Velex interrupted, their aged features solemn. And Cycron has been placing his allies on the council for years. Taraves noticed Kai watching and gestured for him to join them. As he entered the main chamber, He was struck by how different she looked. She'd abandoned her royal attire for the simpler clothing of the progressive faction, though she still carried herself with unmistakable regal bearing. Cycron has moved faster than we anticipated, she explained to Kai. He's convinced my father that I've been compromised by Earth influences, using our escape as evidence. What does that mean for us? Kai asked. It means, Velek said grimly, that you are both now officially enemies of the Vessan state. The princess has been branded a traitor, and you, Earthchild, have been declared a spy who manipulated the sacred betrothal rite. The penalty for both crimes is crystallization, Naren added, then clarified for Kai's benefit. A process that encases the convicted in living crystal, conscious but immobile, forever. A chill ran down Kai's spine. That's barbaric. It's tradition, Teraves said bitterly. One of many that Sicron uses to maintain control. She turned to a holographic display showing what appeared to be a map of Vesa Prime, with pulsing indicators moving through the city levels. Search parties are combing the middle city, she continued. They'll reach the resonance district by midday. We need to move. Where? Kai asked. If the entire government is against us? Not the entire government, Teraves corrected. There are still those loyal to me and my vision for Vessan, including someone very important. She hesitated, then added, my sibling, Koros Ves, first heir to the Crystal Throne. This revelation brought surprised murmurs from several of the Vessans present. Even Velix looked taken aback. The first heir supports our cause? The elder asked. Since when? Since always, though cautiously, Teraves replied. Koros plays the perfect traditional heir in public, but privately shares my concerns about isolation. We've maintained separate approaches as a strategic choice. And now, Naren prompted, now Koros has sent word through secure channels. My sibling will meet us in the Crystal Forest at the Resonance Shrine. From there, we can access the ancient pathways to the council chamber and present our evidence against Sicron directly to the elders. What evidence? Kai asked. We know Sicron and Irela sabotaged the ritual, but we can't prove it. Teraves turned to him, her expression brightening slightly. That's where your AI companion might help us. Milo detected the secondary communication channel between Sicron and Irela. Correct? Yes, Kai confirmed, but only fragments. Those fragments might be enough if we can combine them with data from the palace systems. Koros has been gathering access codes that will let us into the ritual archives. A new Vessan stepped forward, taller than the others, with crystalline skin that shimmered with rippling patterns of green and gold. The journey to the Resonance Shrine will not be easy. The Crystal Forest is treacherous even in peaceful times, with search parties combing the area. We have no choice. Liren, Teraves replied, it's our only path forward. Liren nodded reluctantly. Then I will guide you. The forest responds to emotional states. My attunement training should help us navigate safely. Preparations moved quickly after that. Kai was provided with clothing better suited for forest travel, layers of fabric similar to what the other Vessans wore, designed to adapt to changing conditions. Naren presented him with a small crystalline device. Emergency beacon, they explained. If you're separated from the others, activate it like this. They demonstrated a specific pressure pattern. Only our faction can detect its signal. Velix approached next, carrying what appeared to be a transparent wristband. This contains partial shielding against the forest's empathic effects. As a non-Vessan, you'll be particularly vulnerable to its projections. Kai accepted the gifts gratefully. Thank you, all of you. You're risking a lot to help a stranger. Not a stranger, Velix corrected. the princess's betrothed, and therefore an ally in our cause. Before Kai could explain that the betrothal was merely a technicality, Taraves called for final preparations. Within minutes, a small group was assembled: the princess, Kai, Liren as guide, and two other Vessens introduced as Marin and Zalos, who would serve as guards. The rest of you dispersed to safe houses. Taraves instructed the remaining faction members. Regroup at the secondary location in 3 cycles. As they prepared to leave through a concealed exit at the rear of the building, Naren embraced the princess, another breach of traditional Vessen protocol that spoke to the faction's different values. Return safely, advocate, they said. The future of Vessen depends on it. The exit led to a narrow passage that descended through several levels of the city. As they moved deeper, the manufactured crystal of the buildings gradually gave way to natural formations, the boundary between city and forest blurring in a way that suggested the metropolis had grown organically from the wild crystal rather than being built upon it. The crystal forest predates Vessen civilization, Liren explained as they walked. Our ancestors didn't construct cities so much as cultivate them from the living crystal. The forest is the origin of all Vessen life, and the source of our connection to resonance, Taraves added. The crystal responds to emotions and intentions, amplifying and reflecting them. It's why Vessen technology is so difficult to interface with other species' systems. It's partially sentient. The passage eventually opened into a breathtaking vista. Before them stretched a vast expanse of crystalline vegetation, towering structures that resembled trees, but with transparent trunks and branches that fractured light into rainbow patterns. Smaller formations clustered at their bases, similar to shrubs or undergrowth, but all made of living crystal that pulsed with inner light. Whoa, Kai breathed, momentarily stunned by the alien beauty. The resonant wild, Liren said with evident pride, the heart of Vessen. As they stepped fully into the forest, Kai immediately felt a change in the atmosphere. The air seemed charged with potential, tingling against his skin. The crystal formations around them subtly shifted, branches bending slightly toward or away from the group as they passed. It's responding to us, he realized aloud. To our emotional states. Taraves confirmed. The forest reflects and sometimes amplifies what we feel. That's why Liren's guidance is essential. Trained attuners can help shape the forest's response. Liren nodded. Stay close. Focus on calm, positive emotions if you can. Fear, anger, or distress will make our path more difficult. They moved deeper into the crystal wilderness, following what appeared to be a trail that formed itself before them and disappeared behind them. The formation was beautiful but disorienting, landmarks shifting and changing as they passed, making it impossible for Kai to track their progress. How far to this shrine? He asked after what felt like hours of walking. A distance is fluid in the forest, Taraves replied. It's more about emotional and resonant states than physical space, but we're moving in the right direction. As if to contradict her words, a sharp crack suddenly echoed through the crystal canopy. Everyone froze. Search party, Marin whispered, hand moving to a weapon at their belt. They've entered the forest. How can you tell? Kai asked. The forest amplifies intentions, Liren explained tensely. Hostile presences create discordance. The sound you just heard, Zalos pointed to a nearby crystal formation, which had developed a spiderweb of cracks along one side. The forest reflects conflict. We need to move faster. Their pace increased, the path becoming steeper and more challenging. The crystal undergrowth grew denser, sometimes requiring them to push through formations that chimed musically upon contact. Each sound made Kai wince, certain it would give away their position. The growth patterns are becoming defensive. Lyran observed with concern. The forest is responding to the search party's aggression. Can it distinguish between us and them? Kai asked. Somewhat, but primarily it reacts to dominant emotional patterns. If enough hostility enters the forest... Lyran trailed off. The entire ecosystem becomes hostile, Teraves finished grimly. It's happened before, during the Crystal Wars, and entire regiments lost in forest reactions. Another crack echoed, closer this time, followed by the sound of crystal shattering. The path before them suddenly closed as a massive formation erupted from the ground, blocking their way. They're using resonance disruptors, Teraves hissed, forcing the forest into defensive patterns. Lyran placed both hands against the new barrier, their crystalline skin glowing with increased intensity. I can reshape it, but it will take time. Time we don't have, Marin said, as more cracking sounds approached from multiple directions. Teraves turned to Kai, her three eyes intense. Your AI, Milo. You said he can analyze patterns. Could he help us navigate? I can try, Kai said, activating his neural interface. Milo, can you scan the crystal formations? Look for resonance patterns, emotional signatures, anything that might help us find a path through. Scanning, Milo confirmed. Detecting complex energy flows throughout the crystal matrix. The formations appear to follow fractal patterns based on emotional inputs. Calculating potential paths now. While Milo worked, Zelos and Marin took defensive positions, weapons ready. The cracking sounds grew closer, interspersed with voices calling orders in the crystalline Vessan language. Path identified, Milo finally announced. The crystal responds most positively to harmonious emotional patterns. Princess Teravessa's unique neural signature creates a resonance the forest recognizes as beneficial. Meaning what? Kai pressed. Meaning, Milo explained. If the princess leads with clear focus on her positive intentions for Vessan, the forest will likely respond by opening a path specifically for her. Teraves looked skeptical but determined. Worth trying. Everyone, stay close to me. She stepped forward, placing her hand against the crystal barrier as Lyran had done. But instead of attempting to reshape it, she closed her eyes, her expression becoming serene and focused. I seek passage to bring truth and balance, she said softly. Not in English or standard Vessan, but in what Kai assumed was an ancient dialect. For the harmony of the crystal, for the future of our people. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, slowly, the barrier began to glow with the same pattern that moved beneath Teravessa's skin, galaxies of light swirling and coalescing. A seam appeared down the center of the formation, widening into an archway just large enough for them to pass through. It worked, Kai breathed. Quickly, Teraves ordered, maintaining her contact with the crystal. I don't know how long this will last. They hurried through the opening, which sealed itself behind them immediately after Zelos. The last in their group passed through. On this side of the barrier, the forest had a different quality, older, more primal, with formations that seemed to have grown undisturbed for centuries. The deep forest, Lyran whispered with awe. Few venture this far anymore. The resonance shrine is close, Teraves said, her confidence growing. I can feel it. She led them forward with renewed purpose, no longer following a visible path but moving with certainty through the ancient crystal growths. The forest seemed to welcome them now, formations shifting to ease their passage. Soft chimes and tones creating a harmonious melody around them. After another hour of travel, they emerged into a clearing dominated by a structure unlike anything Kai had seen before. It resembled a temple made entirely of crystal, but not built or grown. Rather, It seemed to be a natural formation that had taken architectural shape of its own accord. Its spires twisted impossibly toward the sky, and its entrance was a perfect arch that glowed with inner light. "The Resonance Shrine," Taraves announced, "where Vessan royalty has communed with the living crystal for millennia." As they approached the entrance, a figure emerged from within, a Vessan taller than Taraves, with crystalline features that held swirling patterns of deep purple and gold. Unlike the princess's 3 eyes, this Vessan had 4, arranged in a diamond pattern that marked them as first heir. "Koros," Taraves said, relief evident in her voice. "You made it." The first heir inclined their head. "As did you, sister, though not without drawing significant attention. Father has deployed the entire royal guard to find you." "And yet you slipped away," Taraves observed. "The privilege of being the perfect, obedient heir." Koros replied with a subtle inflection that might have been irony. Their 4 eyes turned to Kai. "So this is the human who exposed Cycron's manipulation." Kai bowed awkwardly, unsure of the proper protocol. "Kai Nakamura, it's, an honor to meet you." "Your Highness?" Koros's crystalline features shifted in what might have been amusement. "First heir will suffice. Come, both of you. We have little time." Inside the shrine, the crystal walls were covered in ancient inscriptions that glowed faintly, illuminating a circular chamber. At its center stood a platform similar to the one from the betrothal rite, but smaller and clearly much older. "The original resonance," Koros explained, gesturing to the platform. "From which all our ceremonies derive, it records all interactions, storing them within the crystal matrix itself." "And can access previous recordings?" Taraves asked eagerly. "With the proper harmonic key, yes." Koros withdrew a small crystal shard from their robes. "This contains the access codes to the ritual archives, including the betrothal rite. But there's a complication." "Of course there is," Kai muttered. "The archives can only be accessed by those involved in the original ritual." Koros continued. "You and the human must activate it together." Taraves nodded, taking the crystal shard from her sibling. "What about Irila's communications with Cycron? Will those be recorded as well?" "All resonance within the ritual chamber is preserved," Koros confirmed, "including the secondary harmonic channels that nobles use for private communication." "Then we may have our evidence," Taraves said, hope rising in her voice. She turned to Kai. "Are you ready?" Before he could answer, a loud crack echoed through the shrine. Lyran rushed in from the entrance, crystalline features clouded with alarm. "Royal guards," they reported breathlessly. "Approaching from multiple directions. Someone betrayed our location." Koros's 4 eyes narrowed. "Not someone Jarila. The High Priestess can track royal movements through the forest. I should have anticipated this." "How long do we have?" Taraves demanded. "Minutes at most," Lyran replied. "Marin and Zelos are setting resonance traps to slow them, but against a full guard complement." Taraves turned to Kai, urgency in her 3 eyes. "We need to access those archives now." Kai nodded, following her to the ancient platform. Unlike the elaborate ceremony of the betrothal rite, this process was straightforward. Taraves placed the crystal shard in a small depression at the platform's center, then motioned for Kai to join her. "Place your hands beside mine," she instructed. "Focus on the memory of the ritual. The platform will respond to our combined resonance." Kai did as directed, laying his palms against the cool crystal surface next to hers. The platform immediately began to glow, pulsing with a rhythm that matched his heartbeat. "It's working," Koros observed from the edge of the chamber. "The archives are opening." Above the platform, the air shimmered as holographic images formed, a perfect recreation of the betrothal rite from the previous day. Kai saw himself on the platform, surrounded by the rotating crystal shards. The scene shifted and flowed, moving backward and forward through the ritual at dizzying speed. We need the moment before Irila demonstrated the path, Taraves said, her concentration intense. Focus on that memory specifically. Kai closed his eyes, recalling the High Priestess's reluctance, the tension in the chamber as she approached the platform. The holographic display stabilized, showing that exact moment. But now, with the archives open, they could hear more than had been audible during the actual event. A second channel of sound emerged, harmonic frequencies that overlaid the main proceedings. Lord Cycron to Irila, Milo translated through Kai's neural interface. Proceed as planned. The altered resonance will reject the human. The scene continued, showing Irila's demonstration and the unexpected rejection of the seventh crystal. More harmonic communications followed. What is happening? Cycron's harmonics sharp with alarm. The sequence was correct, Irila responded. Someone has changed the pattern since our preparation. Impossible. Only royal command can... Cycron's communication cut off abruptly as the recording showed Taraves ascending the platform. There's our proof, Taraves said triumphantly. Cycron explicitly mentioned altering the resonance pattern to ensure failure. Koros nodded gravely. Enough to demand a full council investigation. If we can reach the shrine shook violently, crystal fragments raining from the ceiling as an explosion rocked the entrance. The holographic display flickered and died. They're here, Laren called from the doorway, on the royal guards, and their warning was cut short as a resonance blast struck them, sending them flying across the chamber. Taraves leapt from the platform, pulling Kai with her as another blast hit where they had been standing. The ancient crystal cracked but held. I get the evidence to the council, she shouted to Koros, who was already moving toward a concealed exit at the rear of the shrine. We'll hold them off. Not without you, Koros protested, but another blast shook the shrine, sending cracked spiderwebbing across the ancient walls. Go, Taraves commanded, her voice carrying the full weight of royal authority. The future of Vessen matters more than any of us. Reluctantly, Koros nodded, their four eyes conveying a silent promise before they disappeared through the hidden passage. Kai had barely processed this exchange when the shrine's main entrance exploded inward, showering the chamber with crystal shards. Through the dust and debris stepped a familiar figure, Lord Cycron, flanked by royal guards in full battle armor. The traitor princess and her human pet. Cycron sneered, his void-like features twisted with satisfaction. How convenient to find you both in one place. Taraves stepped forward, positioning herself between Kai and her uncle. The only traitor here is you. Cycron, we've accessed the ritual archives. Your manipulation of the betrothal rite is recorded and preserved. A flicker of uncertainty crossed Cycron's features, quickly replaced by cold calculation. Records can be altered, witnesses silenced. His gaze shifted to Lyran's unconscious form. As your faction members will soon discover, you would destroy ancient Vessen traditions just to maintain your grip on power, Taraves challenged, her three eyes blazing. I preserve Vessen's purity, Cycron countered. Your vision of integration with lesser species would dilute everything that makes us superior. He gestured to the guards. Seize them. The princess faces the crystallization chamber for treason. The human. His void-like features shifted into a cruel smile. Will provide an excellent demonstration of resonance dissection for our scientists. The guards moved forward, resonance weapons ready. Taraves glanced at Kai, a silent communication passing between them. They were outnumbered, outarmed, and trapped. Milo, Kai subvocalized urgently. Can you interface with the shrine's crystal matrix? It's connected to the forest outside, right? Attempting connection, the AI replied. The matrix is ancient but responsive. What are you thinking? If the forest responds to emotions, let's give it something to respond to. As the guards closed in, Kai placed his hands against the cracked platform, concentrating on every emotion he'd experienced since winning the lottery. Fear, confusion, wonder, and most recently, a fierce determination to protect Tara Vess and her vision for Vessen's future. "Ooh, what is the human doing?" Cycron demanded, suddenly wary. Tara Vess, understanding Kai's intent, placed her hands beside his on the platform. "Something you've forgotten how to do, Uncle." Connecting. The ancient crystal beneath their fingers began to glow, pulsing with increasing intensity. The light spread outward, following the cracks in the platform, then jumping to the walls, floor, and ceiling of the shrine. "Stop them!" Cycron ordered. But as the guards rushed forward, the crystal beneath their feet trembled and heaved. "A resonance cascade imminent," Milo warned. "The shrine's structural integrity is compromised." "Then let it fall," Kai said grimly. "On our terms." The platform beneath their hands suddenly shattered. But instead of harming them, the crystal fragments swirled around Kai and Tara Vess, forming a protective barrier as the entire shrine began to collapse. Guards scrambled backward, resonance weapons forgotten as survival instinct took over. Cycron alone stood his ground, void-like features contorted with rage. "You fool! You'll destroy priceless Vessan heritage." "No," Tara Vess replied calmly, her hand finding Kai's within their crystal cocoon. "We're letting it evolve." The shrine's collapse accelerated, crystal spires crashing down around them. But where Kai expected chaos and destruction, he witnessed something else entirely. The falling crystal didn't shatter but transformed, flowing like liquid before resolidifying in new configurations. The forest was reclaiming its ancient structure, reshaping it according to the emotional resonance Kai and Tara Vess had unleashed. In the midst of this transformation, a pathway opened before them, a tunnel through the flowing crystal leading away from Cycron and his guards. "Run!" Tara Vess urged, pulling Kai forward into the passage, which sealed behind them as they fled. They raced through the reshaping crystal forest, the living matrix responding to their presence by creating a path forward while closing behind them. Echoes of Cycron's rage followed them, growing fainter as the distance increased. "Where are we going?" Kai gasped as they ran. "Wherever the forest takes us," Tara Vess replied, never slowing. "It's responding to our combined resonance, something that hasn't happened between Vessan and human before." After what felt like hours but might have been minutes in the disorienting crystal environment, they emerged into a small clearing. At its center stood a perfect circle of crystal formations, each pulsing with gentle light. "The Heart Grove," Tara Vess whispered in awe. "I've only heard of it in ancient texts. A place where the first Vessans communed directly with the forest consciousness." As they stepped into the circle, the crystal formations around them hummed in harmony, creating a dome of sound and light that separated them from the outside world. "We're safe here for now," the princess said, finally allowing exhaustion to show in her posture. "The grove exists partially outside normal space-time. Cycron won't find us until we choose to leave." Kai sank to the ground, his legs giving out as adrenaline ebbed. "What happens now? Koros has the evidence, but we're trapped here." Tara Vess sat beside him, her crystalline features softened by the grove's gentle light. "Not trapped, protected. The grove is giving us time to rest, to plan, and—" She hesitated. "To decide what comes next for us." "Us?" Kai echoed, the word carrying unexpected weight. The The betrothal may have begun as political maneuvering, she acknowledged, but circumstances have evolved. You've shown courage and insight few Vessens would expect from a human. You've helped me in ways no one from my world could have. Kai found himself studying her features, the galaxies swirling beneath her crystalline skin. The three eyes that had once seemed alien but now held a familiar intelligence and warmth. I entered that lottery on impulse, he admitted. Never expecting to win. Certainly never expecting this. He gestured around them, at the crystal grove and at her. But I don't regret it. Taraves smiled, a genuine expression that transformed her regal features. Nor do I. She reached out, her crystalline fingers hovering near his. Among Vessens, true connection is rare and valued above all else. What we've experienced these past days, the resonance between us, it's unprecedented. Before Kai could respond, a soft chime echoed through the grove. One of the crystal formations shifted, creating an opening through which stepped an unexpected figure. High Priestess Irela. Kai and Taraves leapt to their feet, but the elderly Vessen raised her hands in a gesture of peace. I come alone, she said, her clouded crystalline features reflecting shame. To make amends. You betrayed us to Cycron, Taraves accused. Why should we trust you now? Because I have seen the consequence of my actions. Irela replied, her voice carrying the harmonic tones of deep regret. The shrine's transformation has rippled through the entire forest. Ancient patterns are awakening. Change is coming to Vessen, whether Cycron wishes it or not. She turned to Kai, inclining her head in unexpected respect. You have done what no outsider has before, connected truly with the heart of our world. The forest recognizes you now, human child. It has granted you passage to places even I cannot go. What does that mean? Kai asked, and still wary. It means, a new voice answered as another figure emerged from the crystal formations, that you have become part of Vessen's story. Koros Vess stepped into the grove, their four eyes gleaming with something like triumph. And stories, once begun, must reach their proper conclusion. Sibling, Taraves exclaimed, the evidence has been presented to the council, Koros confirmed, along with additional testimony from an unexpected source. They nodded toward Irela. The high priestess bowed her head. I have served Vessen traditions for centuries. When I realized Cycron's true intent, not to preserve our ways but to twist them for his own power, I could remain silent no longer. The council has called an emergency conclave, Koros continued. Cycron has been detained pending investigation, but there remains one unresolved matter. Their four eyes fixed on Kai and Taraves. The betrothal. A weighted silence fell over the grove. Kai looked at Taraves, whose expression had become unreadable once more. The ritual was compromised, she said carefully. Under Vessen law, that would invalidate the betrothal. True, Koros agreed. But there is another law, far older. When a non-Vessen achieves resonance with the forest itself, they earn the right to choose their own path, including, they added with meaningful emphasis, their marital status. All eyes turned to Kai, who suddenly felt the weight of not just his own future, but potentially that of interstellar relations. I never expected to win that lottery, he said slowly. I certainly never expected to become involved in Vessen politics or to connect with living crystal forests. He turned to Taraves, meeting her three-eyed gaze directly. But the one thing I've learned through all this is that sometimes the most unexpected connections are the most valuable. I entered this betrothal by chance, but if I stay in it, I want it to be by choice, both mine and yours. The princess's crystalline features softened. The diplomatic path would be to maintain the betrothal as a symbol of Earth-Vesson relations. I'm not asking what's diplomatic, Kai replied. I'm asking what you want. The grove around them hummed, crystal formations pulsing in rhythm with their emotions. In that moment, surrounded by the heart of Vesson, Kai realized how far he'd come from the lonely orphan who'd impulsively bought a lottery ticket. Here, light years from Earth, he'd found something he hadn't even known he was seeking: connection, purpose, and possibility. Taraves stepped closer, her crystalline hand finally touching his. Where he expected coolness, he felt warmth as their resonance patterns synchronized. What I want," she said softly, "is to build a future where Vesson and Earth grow together, where isolation gives way to connection." Her three eyes met his with newfound openness. "And I would like you to help me build that future." Kai Nakamura, not as a political symbol but as a partner. The crystal grove around them brightened, resonating with their aligned intentions. Koros and Irila exchanged glances, the significance of the moment not lost on either of them. "It seems the forest approves," Koros observed. Kai found himself smiling, his hand still joined with Taraves's. "Then I accept, both the partnership and the challenge it represents." "A wise choice," Irila said, her aged features reflecting something like hope. "The path forward will not be easy. Traditions do not change overnight, and Cycron still has allies. We'll face them together," Taraves declared, "alongside all who share our vision for an integrated future." Koros stepped forward. "The council awaits your return, sister, both of you. There is much to discuss about Vesson's new direction." As they prepared to leave the sanctuary of the grove, Kai felt Milo stir in his neural interface. An unexpected outcome from a lottery ticket, the AI observed privately. "The best kind of unexpected," Kai replied, looking at Taraves. "Sometimes winning is just the beginning." The Vesson Council chamber was unlike anything Kai had ever seen. A vast space where the ceiling seemed to open directly to the stars above, though he knew they were still deep within the crystal throne. 12 elder Vessons sat in a perfect circle, their ancient crystalline features containing patterns more complex than any Kai had observed before. At the circle's head sat a figure Kai immediately recognized as Taraves's father, the sovereign of Vesson, whose crystalline skin contained not galaxies but entire universes of light. In the chamber's center stood Lord Cycron, his void-like features now dimmed and clouded, surrounded by royal guards. The evidence against him had been presented, both the archive recordings and High Priestess Irila's testimony. His fate now hung in the balance. "The manipulation of sacred rituals for political gain violates our most fundamental laws," the sovereign pronounced, his voice resonating through the chamber. "Yet more concerning is the intent behind such actions, to isolate Vesson from the Galactic Union at a time when connection is increasingly vital." Cycron raised his head. "I sought only to preserve our purity, sovereign, our superiority." "A superiority that would lead to stagnation," Taraves countered, standing tall beside Kai. "The Union offers knowledge, resources, and perspectives that can only strengthen us. As demonstrated by this human," Koros added, gesturing to Kai, "who achieved resonance with our sacred forest, something previously thought impossible for non-Vessons." The council chamber hummed with discussion, elder Vessons communicating in harmonic tones too complex for Kai to follow even with Milo's assistance. Finally, the sovereign raised his hand, bringing silence. "Lord Cycron, for crimes against Vesson tradition and attempted sabotage of Union relations, you are sentenced to the reflection chamber. There you will remain until true resonance with Vesson's best interests is achieved." Cycron's features darkened further, but he offered no resistance as guards led him away. The punishment, Kai learned through Milo's quick explanation, was not the permanent crystallization Psychron had intended for them, but a form of rehabilitation through intense resonance therapy. The Sovereign turned his attention to Kai and Taraves. The matter of your betrothal remains. The ritual was compromised, yet ancient law recognizes the forest's acceptance of your bond. His universe-containing eyes studied Kai with impossible depth. Human child, do you understand what such a connection means for your future? You would stand between worlds, belonging fully to neither. Kai met the Sovereign's gaze steadily. With respect, I've stood between worlds since losing my parents. What matters isn't where you belong, but who you connect with. A murmur of approval rippled through several council members. The Sovereign's features shifted in what might have been surprise. Wisdom from an unexpected source, he acknowledged. Perhaps there is merit in my daughter's vision after all. He turned to Taraves. You maintain your desire for this union? I do, Father, she replied without hesitation. Both the personal union and the broader one it represents between our worlds. The Sovereign was silent for a long moment, the universes beneath his skin shifting and realigning. Finally, he nodded. Then let it be so. The betrothal stands, to be formalized when both parties deem appropriate. He rose from his seat, towering over everyone present. Furthermore, I appoint Princess Taraves as Vesen's primary ambassador to Earth, with authority to establish deeper connections between our worlds. Taraves bowed deeply, her three eyes bright with triumph. I am honored, Father, and will serve Vesen's true interests with all my ability. See that you do, the Sovereign replied, though Kai thought he detected a hint of warmth in the formal response. This council is adjourned. As the assembly dispersed, Koros approached them, four eyes gleaming with satisfaction. Well played, sister. You've achieved more than we dared hope. We've taken the first step, Taraves corrected. The path ahead remains challenging. But not one you'll walk alone, Kai added, the sentiment earning him a rare gesture of approval from the first heir. Indeed not, Koros agreed. The progressive faction stands ready to support your ambassadorial mission. They turned to Kai. And what of you, human? Your academy studies await on Earth, do they not? The question gave Kai pause. In the chaos of recent events, he'd almost forgotten his scholarship application, his plans for advancing neural interface technology. Perhaps, Taraves suggested, reading his expression. There might be a way to combine our paths. Vesen crystalline technology and Earth neural interfaces could benefit greatly from collaborative research. A joint academic appointment, Koros elaborated. Splitting your time between Earth's Academy and our own Institute of Resonance, the first of its kind, a symbol of our new approach. The possibility struck Kai as perfect, a way to pursue his passion while building the bridge between worlds that he and Taraves had begun to forge. I'd like that, he said, feeling a sense of purpose stronger than any he'd known before. And then it shall be arranged, Koros declared before taking their leave to attend to other council matters. Left alone with Taraves in the now empty chamber, Kai found himself at a rare loss for words. So much had changed in so little time. The princess, his betrothed, still a strange thought, seemed to understand his silence. Overwhelming, isn't it? She said, her voice gentler than he'd ever heard it. In less than 3 cycles, you've gone from lottery winner to diplomatic linchpin, and from rejected prize to actual fiancé, Kai added with a tentative smile. Taraves's crystalline features softened. A more accurate term might be resonance partner. The Vesen concept encompasses more than Earth's notion of marriage. It's a harmonizing of paths, purposes and potentials. I like that, Kai said, realizing it captured perfectly what had developed between them. Not the instant romance of human stories, but something deeper and more deliberate. A connection forged through shared danger and aligned vision. As do I, she agreed, her three eyes holding his gaze with new warmth. We have time now, time to learn each other's worlds, to build something meaningful between Earth and Vesson, and between ourselves. From his neural interface, Milo offered a rare philosophical observation. Probability of winning the lottery, 0.0000087%. Probability of these specific outcomes from that win, incalculable. Sometimes mathematics fails to capture the most significant patterns. Kai smiled at the AI's comment. Sometimes the longest odds lead to the best outcomes. As they left the council chamber together, stepping into corridors that would take them to new responsibilities and possibilities. Kai thought about the impulsive decision that had led him here, a lottery ticket purchased on a whim, a chance at connection that had become something far more profound. The Galactic Union's marriage lottery had been designed as a symbolic gesture, a thin thread between worlds. Instead, it had become the foundation for a bridge, one that Kai and Taraves would now build together, linking not just their lives but their entire civilizations. Behind them, the crystal walls of the palace pulsed with gentle light, resonating with the harmony of their shared purpose. Ahead lay challenges and discoveries neither could fully anticipate. But between them existed something that had never been seen before, a resonance pattern unique to their unlikely connection. Stronger for its very unexpectedness. Kai Nakamura, once a solitary orphan with only an AI for company, walked forward into a future brightened by crystalline light and unexpected connection. Proof that sometimes, against all odds, the greatest victory is finding exactly what you never knew you needed. As they stepped into the transporter that would take them to their first official function as representatives of a new Earth-Vesson alliance, Taraves's hand found his once more. "Ready?" she asked, her three eyes meeting his two with perfect understanding. Kai nodded, feeling more ready than he had for anything in his life. Together, the crystalline transporter hummed around them, resonating with their shared intention as it carried them toward a future neither could have imagined before a lottery sphere had spun their destinies into alignment. Sometimes the longest odds lead to the perfect match.